Maria Santos adjusted her worn cleaning supplies cart as she entered the marble foyer of the Henderson mansion in Beverly Hills. At 42, her hands bore the calluses of 20 years spent scrubbing other people's floors, but her dignity remained intact despite the whispers that followed her through the wealthy neighborhoods where she worked. "You're 10 minutes late," snapped Mrs. Henderson, her perfectly manicured nails tapping impatiently against her designer handbag. "I specifically said 8 a.m. sharp." "I'm sorry, Mrs. Henderson. The bus was delayed because of construction." "I don't want excuses, Maria. I want reliability." Mrs. Henderson's voice echoed through the grand hallway, loud enough for the other staff to hear. "Perhaps you should consider finding work that better suits your capabilities." Maria's cheeks burned with embarrassment as the gardener and pool cleaner exchanged knowing glances. She had been cleaning the Henderson home for 3 years, never missing a day except when her diabetic mother was hospitalized, yet Mrs. Henderson treated her like she was disposable. "The new jewelry cleaning service is coming today," Mrs. Henderson continued, her tone dripping with condescension. "Try not to get in their way. Some of us have valuable things that require professional care." The implications stung. Maria had been carefully cleaning Mrs. Henderson's precious items for years without a single incident, but clearly, her touch wasn't considered professional enough for the newer, more expensive pieces. As Mrs. Henderson click-clacked away in her Louboutin heels, Maria overheard her phone conversation with a friend. "Yes, she's reliable enough for basic cleaning, but I would never trust her with anything truly important. You know how these people are." Maria gripped her cleaning cloth tighter, fighting back tears. She needed this job desperately. Her mother's medication cost $800 a month, her teenage son Diego needed new school supplies, and their apartment rent had just increased. There was no room for pride when survival was at stake. The other housekeeper, Carmen, walked by and whispered, "Don't let her get to you, Maria. She talks to everyone like that." But Maria had heard this treatment too many times, in too many homes. The assumption that because she cleaned houses, she was somehow less trustworthy, less intelligent, less worthy of basic respect. Later that morning, Maria worked alone in the master bedroom, carefully dusting the antique furniture that cost more than she earned in a year. Her phone buzzed with a text from the clinic. "Your mother's insulin prescription is ready for pickup. Total, $847. Maria's hands trembled as she read the message. She had $300 in savings. Not nearly enough. She thought about asking Mrs. Henderson for an advance on her pay, but after this morning's humiliation, she couldn't bear the thought of appearing even more desperate. As she cleaned, Maria noticed family photos scattered across the dresser. Pictures of the Henderson children at expensive private schools, vacations in Europe, Christmas mornings surrounded by mountains of gifts. She thought of her own son Diego, who wore second-hand clothes and studied by candlelight when they couldn't afford the electric bill. "Not fair to compare," she whispered to herself, the way she always did when the inequality became overwhelming. Her phone rang. Diego's school calling. "Mrs. Santos, this is Principal Martinez. Diego's lunch account is overdrawn, and he's been going without meals for 3 days. He's too proud to ask for free lunch, but we're worried about him." Maria's heart shattered. Her brilliant, hard-working son was going hungry because she couldn't even afford school lunches. "I'll bring money today," she promised, though she had no idea where she'd find it. After hanging up, Maria sat on the edge of the Hendersons' king-sized bed, sheets that cost more than her monthly grocery budget, and allowed herself exactly 30 seconds to cry. She couldn't afford to break down. Too many people depended on her strength. She wiped her eyes and returned to work, not noticing that someone had been watching her from the hallway. What Maria didn't know was that Robert Henderson, Mrs. Henderson's stepson, had returned early from his business trip. The 45-year-old tech mogul had built his fortune from nothing, and unlike his stepmother, he remembered what it felt like to struggle. Robert had been observing the household staff for weeks, troubled by reports from neighbors about items going missing from their homes. His stepmother insisted it had to be the help, and pressure was mounting to install security cameras or conduct searches. But Robert wanted to understand the truth before making accusations that could destroy innocent people's lives. He had been watching Maria work for the past hour, noting her gentleness with their possessions, her quiet dignity despite his stepmother's treatment. He saw her phone call, witnessed her brief moment of vulnerability, and understood more than she realized. Robert made a decision that would reveal everything. He went to his private study and opened his wall safe, something he never left unlocked. Inside were stacks of cash totaling $50,000, important documents, and his grandmother's diamond bracelet worth $75,000. He arranged everything so it was clearly visible, then deliberately left the safe door wide open. He positioned himself in the adjacent room where he could observe without being seen, then waited. 30 minutes later, Maria entered the study with her cleaning supplies. She moved methodically, dusting the bookshelves, vacuuming the Persian rug, polishing the desk. When she turned toward the wall, she froze. The open safe was directly in front of her, its contents gleaming under the afternoon light. Robert watched her face carefully, looking for any sign of greed or temptation. Instead, he saw panic. Maria looked around quickly, then hurried to the safe. But instead of reaching inside, she carefully closed it, spinning the combination lock to secure it. She then pulled out her phone and dialed a number. "Mr. Henderson? This is Maria, your housekeeper. I'm in your study and noticed your safe was left open. I've secured it, but you might want to check that everything is still there when you get home." Robert's throat tightened as he listened to her message. She could have taken enough money to solve all her problems, money that wouldn't even be missed from his accounts, but instead, her first instinct was to protect his property. But Maria wasn't finished. She did something that made Robert's eyes fill with tears. After leaving the voicemail, Maria knelt in front of the now-closed safe and began to pray quietly in Spanish. Robert, who understood the language from his college years, heard every word. "Dear God, please don't let Mr. Henderson think I touched anything. I know how this looks, a poor housekeeper alone with an open safe. Please protect my reputation and my job. My family needs this work, and I can't afford to be accused of something I didn't do." She paused, her voice breaking slightly. "And God, if you could help me find a way to pay for Mama's medicine and Diego's lunch, I would be so grateful. I'm not asking for miracles, just enough." Robert watched this woman, who could have solved her financial problems in seconds, instead praying for strength to maintain her integrity. The contrast between her character and his stepmother's assumptions couldn't have been starker. Maria finished her prayer, stood up, and continued cleaning as if nothing had happened. She completed the entire room with the same careful attention to detail she always showed, never once looking back at the safe. When she finished, she gathered her supplies and moved to the next room. Robert waited 5 more minutes, then entered his study and called out, "Maria? Could you come here, please?" Maria appeared in the doorway, her face pale with worry. "Yes, Mr. Henderson? Did you get my message about the safe?" "I did," Robert said, his voice gentle. "But I need to tell you something. The safe wasn't left open by accident." Maria's confusion was evident. "I don't understand, sir." "I left it open deliberately. I wanted to see what would happen." The color drained from Maria's face. "You were testing me?" Robert nodded, watching her process this information. "There have been thefts in the neighborhood. Some people suggested it might be household staff. I needed to know the truth about the people working in my home." Maria's shoulders sagged with the weight of realization. "And now you know I'm not a thief." "Maria," Robert said softly, "I know much more than that." Robert gestured for Maria to sit down, but she remained standing, unsure if she was about to be fired despite passing his test. "I heard your phone call," Robert said gently, "about your mother's medication and your son's lunch account." Maria's eyes widened with embarrassment. "I'm sorry you had to hear that, sir. I don't bring my personal problems to work." Stop, Robert interrupted. You have nothing to apologize for. In fact, I'm the one who needs to apologize. He opened his desk drawer and pulled out a checkbook. You could have taken $50,000 from that safe. Money that would have solved every problem you mentioned. Instead, you protected my property and prayed for strength to find another way. Maria watched, bewildered, as he began writing a check. Your integrity in that moment taught me something important, Robert continued. True character isn't about what you do when people are watching, it's about who you are when you think no one will ever know. He tore off the check and handed it to Maria. She looked down and gasped. It was made out for $25,000. Mr. Henderson, I can't accept this. I was just doing what anyone would do. No, Maria. You were doing what you would do. And that makes all the difference. Robert stood and walked to his safe, entering the combination. I have a proposition for you. I'm opening a new community center in East LA, a place where working families can get job training, healthcare assistance, and educational support. Maria listened in stunned silence as he continued. I need someone to manage it. Someone who understands the struggles of the families we'll be serving. Someone with unshakable integrity and genuine compassion. He turned to face her. The position pays $75,000 a year, plus full benefits for you and your family. Your mother's medical care would be covered. Diego could attend any school he chooses, and you'd be helping hundreds of families like your own. Tears streamed down Maria's face. But I don't have a college degree. I'm just a housekeeper. You're not just anything, Robert said firmly. You're a woman who chose integrity over easy money, who prays for strength instead of taking shortcuts, who raises a son to be proud even when times are hard. Those aren't qualifications you learn in school, they're qualities you either have or you don't. Maria sank into the chair, overwhelmed. Why are you doing this? Robert smiled, thinking of his own mother who had cleaned houses to put him through college. Because 25 years ago, someone took a chance on me when I was just a poor kid with big dreams. Because I've learned that the best employees aren't always the ones with the fanciest credentials, they're the ones with the strongest character. He paused, his voice growing thick with emotion. And because watching you protect my property when you desperately needed money reminded me that there are still good people in this world. People worth investing in. 6 months later, Maria's Community Resource Center had helped over 300 families find jobs, health care, and educational opportunities. Diego earned a full scholarship to UCLA, and Maria's mother's health stabilized with proper medical care. But the most important change wasn't financial. It was the restoration of Maria's faith that hard work and integrity really do matter in a world that often seems to reward the opposite. Robert kept one photo on his desk. Maria on opening day of the center, surrounded by families she was helping, her face radiant with purpose and dignity. It reminded him daily that the most valuable treasures aren't kept in safes. They're found in the character of people who choose to do right even when no one is watching.